Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've noticed there's very few videos out there on YouTube with regards to servicing your engine. So today we're going to be servicing my Mariner 15 horsepower EFI engine. It's a fairly small engine, perfect for my SIB, gets me around. EFI meaning electronic fuel injection. No carb, slightly more simpler, but potentially more to go wrong with it. But anyway, it's something that gets me out 7 miles offshore, and it's pretty amazing. So yeah, I want to keep it in tip-top condition, and I think it's something, if you want to go out on the sea and you want to be a boater or a sibber, you really need to know how to look after your engine and keep it tip-top. So today we're going to be servicing it. I'm going to show you how to do everything from changing the oil to changing the spark plugs, and hopefully we're going to be dropping the leg off and changing the impeller as well. So a few things to do today, and we're going to do that with my very good friend Gaz. Gaz is absolutely amazing, complete star, all-round hero, and we're in his workshop at the moment, JDI Water Body. He's a specialist restoration with VW. So yeah, highly recommend him. He's probably the best guy to know. So if you don't know him already, hit him up on Facebook and find him as a friend. Right, so just going to give you a quick intro to what we've got today in terms of a service. So first of all, just going to run you through these. We've got the gear lube, which is really important. We've got our oil, Quicksilver oil, 4 strokes, 10 watts, 30. We've got 2 of those. We don't actually need to, but we've got 2 of those. We've got our fuel filter, not fuel, sorry, we've got oil filter, and we've got our impeller there. We've also got our spark plugs. In terms of tools, we've got a couple of spanners. We've got 8, we've got a 9, and we've got a 10. The 10s always seem to go missing. We've even got 11, but that's all we should need in terms of tools, and then potentially a couple of ratchets as well. And then we've got our seal kit in there. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward, but we'll talk about it as we go. So this is our lovely Mariner engine. As you can see, fairly straightforward. And everything is housed within here that we need, but we will be dropping the leg off to get here. A couple of things I just wanted to point out down here. So first off, we have this one. This is our oil, where we take off the oil. So basically this is almost like the sump plug. So we unscrew this and remove this, and we will be able to drain the oil from this point here. Right, so we've just opened up the engine cover here, as Gaz has just been trying to find out where the HT leads are that are onto our spark plugs. So these are what's called HT leads that sit on top of our spark plugs. It's important that they go on the correct ones. If not, the timing is going to be out and the engine will either not run well. So to access them on this Mariner, we've just had to pull the fuel filter out of the way. That's where the fuel filter is. That just gives us the nice easy access to where the spark plugs is. And then it's just a matter of pulling those off and then replacing the spark plugs as they are. Next to it, this is where our oil filter is. Hopefully you can see that. It's a twist-on jobby. Don't screw it on with a spanner or anything else. You should be able to screw it off by hand. If not, we can use it as a filter wrench to get it off. But the best thing is when you're screwing on, only ever hand tight it. There we go. This Gaz has got an oil filter wrench there, which makes life a lot easier for getting it off. And then our oil filter cap is on the front here. This is for where we're filling on, and that is where this stick here is our dipstick for checking our oil. So, guys, what's next? We'll change the HT. So it's spark plugs. I managed to see what the condition of these spark plugs is. So I've been using this engine for the last year. Fairly heavy use, I have to say. I think I've put a few hours on it, and I've certainly pushed it out there. So I'll be interested to see how badly these spark plugs are burned. I don't think they're going to be great, but we'll see. Ooh la la la. There we go. You can see the top of the spark plug. Does not look great. Ooh, this is quite mucky. Quite mucky. Another interesting thing is if you smell your spark plugs, you can tell an awful lot that's going on by the actual smell of a spark plug. You can smell burnt oil, you can smell fuel, you can smell a lot of things. So have a good sniff. Don't taste, but have a good sniff.
You can also tell an awful lot by the colour of the electrode on the end. That one at the moment with that colour is burning more than sufficiently. It just would appear it's on choke quite a lot, which is usually consistent with starting up, doing a drift, and then starting back up and going back round on the drift, which I do a lot. When you open them up and tip them out, be cautious it doesn't fall out the box. It has this electrode protector on it, but what you don't want to do is drop the plug. One, you can break the porcelain and it can create a misfire, but also you don't want to close this gap up that's here. This is a preset gap from factory. To be fair, it is always usually worth checking, but they do have these protectors on. There's no damage on any of the boxes, so I wouldn't think that for any reason they are closed up at all, but always worth checking with a pair of feeler gauges. So we got our 0.9mm feeler gauge. We're just going to check our plugs before we put them in, make sure they got the right gap. If they don't have the right gap, then it won't run right and it won't burn efficiently. So they're good. Always try and fit them into the socket. It just gives you a bit more manoeuvrability trying to get them into the hole. Okay, now they're nipped. They do have to be torqued because they do have a torque setting. So we should do that shortly with the torque wrench. 20 Newton meters. This tool should click when we get to the right torque. There's the click. It's 20 Newton meters. Lovely. Just make sure when you torque your plugs up, when you go on with your torque wrench, it actually moves before it clicks. If it clicks before it moves, then your spark plug's too tight. So you have to back it off and then retighten. Okay, that's that done.
So the next thing we're going to do now is drain the oil from this. This is our drain plug on the side. So we've loosened off the top cap, as you can see. All the way off. That's the oil filler cap. Now when we do this, we're going to be tipping the engine back as far as we can, and then we're going to be tipping it onto its side. We'll show you how it's done. So this bit is a little bit more tricky now because we've got the engine up and to its highest point. We've got the oil drain, so the oil will be draining into here, and the oil will be draining out this. So we're going to turn the engine onto its side in a minute, which will allow the engine to be able to, which will allow the oil to be able to drain out of that plug. There we go. Perfect. Nice. And that oil is pretty mucky. You see it's draining out there. Right, as the oil is draining off, just something to mention. So this was in a seal kit. We have got a spare washer here for the sump plug, to make sure it is replaced every time. And we've also got our fibre washers here for the leg. So that comes in the seal kit.
So a new sump plug washer out the box. As we're going to do to clean the face. And then simply screw that back in.
Okay, there we go. So it's now been torqued up, and we're ready to drop the leg next and drain the leg.
Right, so that's the 4 bolts that hold the leg on the bottom. Now we've got a gear selector connector here, which is 2 8mm. Knock the lock nut off the bottom and wind the collar all the way up.
So the lock nut on the bottom, we've knocked that off, we've unscrewed that, and then the top one we've unscrewed all the way to the top, and that's our gear selector. I'll hold the camera under this at the same time. Perfect. So now the leg should just slide out with any bit of luck. There we go. Look at that. Slid straight out, absolutely beautiful.
Yep, good eye.
So, right.
Before we took the leg off, we loosened the top screw and the bottom screw. So we shall now remove that top screw. And we got this little pot here with the measurements on it because we have no technical data to know how much goes back in. So we shall remove the bottom screw and allow that oil to drain into there so we know how much we've got.
Nice and milky.
Well, it does look a little milky, unfortunately.
And if things are milky, it normally means because seawater has mixed with the oil. Water and oil make it go milky. $400. Spot on. Here we go. Looks a bit milky to me. In fact, it looks like a weak cup of coffee. I wouldn't advise you to drink that. Right, so here we are. We've got the leg off. We've got our housing here, which we'll change in a minute, but we're going to be changing these. The bolts are not going to be changed, but the fibre washers are going to be changed. The black ones are the old ones. You can see, hopefully you can see that. And then the blue ones are the new ones, a little bit thicker. So we're going to be changing it to the new ones, and then we will refill it back up as soon as we've got it back on the leg. Well, we've got the leg up here. So I'm doing the top of the impeller housing. There we go, nice and easy. And there's the impeller there. And oh look, I've seen better conditions, better impellers than that.
Another important thing to note is this keyway here. Make sure, because it does come out, the key does come out of the keyway slot in the shaft, so you have to be careful that it doesn't fall out. And to be fair, on this particular model it looks a ceramic keyway, which must mean it's sacrificial.
Yeah.
An important thing to note, got stuck on my finger. Important thing to note is the direction it actually fits into the chrome, because when we fit the new one, this is going to be on the shaft, so this housing has to come down and sort of twist on. So it's important to note which way the legs go, because if they go around the wrong way, it has to try and rotate them past their centre for them to bend back the other way. So it's always important to twist them in the correct way. So that's on the back now. Pop the keyway in. the new impeller down, make sure it's locked on the keyway, like so, and twist. There we go.
Whilst Gazza's tightening that, one thing I'll just say, it's really important to torque all your bolts properly. If you need to know your torque settings, go to your manual and it will have it in your manual, so you'll be able to see what the torque settings are. That's really, really important. You don't want to over tighten them, otherwise you're going to be replacing lots of bits that you shouldn't be replacing. So there it goes, just torque those up now. So yeah, if you haven't got that, we've just lubricated with a tiny bit of the white grease onto there, the impeller housing where that sits, and then that sits on top. I don't know if you can see in there, but actually just inside there we have a little pipe that it sits on top of. There we go. So we've just lubricated that pipe with white marine grease, and we've lubricated that, so that will fit nice and well and tight.
Pop that back on. The shaft has a couple of rings it's got to go through as it goes up the leg, so they can be a little tricky.
There we go. Let's slug in. Gazza's very cleverly, he's put the bolts on the floor here, all ready to go in. So you see it's nice and easy and neat. So it means he can literally fit it in. He's got the bolts to hand, and he's not faffing around or dropping the leg or anything like that.
Always tighten your bolts up opposing, so whatever one you start on, tighten the opposite on the other side. So if you start with bottom on one side, then do the top on the other, and then the bottom. It just helps settle everything and seat everything square. Okay. They are to be torqued up, but I'd imagine they're pretty much there. Just about go down with that.
So yeah, this is what one of these common misconceptions, and actually this is something I didn't actually know about, and I've made a mistake before, so I'm going to tell you about my horrific mistake, and that you do not make this mistake. But one of the common misconceptions, as Gaz has been explaining, so you've got the two screws, one on the top and then one on the bottom. The one on the top, I've always assumed that you fill it from the bottom and wait for it to actually overfill from the top and then re-screw it in. That's not the case, and if you do, it's going to leave nowhere for the air or anything to go, and ultimately it can burst or damage your prop seal, and then it gets milky, what it has done on this engine today. You can see it all nice and milky oil, not good. So basically what this is called, as Gaz is explaining, this is a flood seal. Not flood seal, flood fill. So basically we're going to fill it from the bottom, and the oil is going to flood up through the leg, and as the oil floods up through the leg, it should be able to push out all of the air and allow the air to rise, and it means it gets around the gears or things, so we're not actually trapping any air or other things in there. Is that correct, Gaz?
Yep, that's correct, and this one is purely a vent to allow the air to escape as it fills the chamber.
So that is the plan. That is what we're going to do. So we're just undoing the top one now.
Right, we'll have residual in here from earlier, from draining it down.
So yeah, we might get some escaping out the bottom, so we'll just put a rag underneath, so if anything does come out.
That was quite a lot. Bit of residual, not the end of the world.
So each of these 237mm, and you want 400mm to go in. So basically just shy of the second tube. So how do we get it in once we're in the cup?
Well, these are great because they have these nozzles on them that fit right in there, and you can squeeze it all in. However, we just want to measure out and make sure we've got, first of all, the correct amount, but we are going to put it in with a syringe.
Ooh.
You can use these to put it in, like I say, that end there does fit into the leg, but it's just trying to squeeze absolutely everything out of the tube. I just find if you've got the option, it's a lot easier out the syringe.
So, well, despite the fact that they're 237mm exactly each, both of them have come to 400mm.
Right, it's all 400ml in the syringe.
Right.
So, what we need is the top bung on standby with the new washer on it. So there's our two new washers. And also on standby, we need the bottom bung.
Right, so there's the top bung. There's the bottom bung. Is that? Yeah, that's the top.
Hopefully, this goes well.
But yeah, it's a bit tricky when you've got the two screws and you have to undo screw, you have to undo the other screw, then squeeze the bottle in, put your finger on the top button, top hole, squeeze the other bottle in, and then tighten the screw at the top, and then you can tighten the screw at the bottom. That's the way you should do it normally. But yeah, so that's the leg screws in. Right, so the last job we've got to do today is just filling out with the engine oil, and we have got a litre to fill, which is exactly one of those bottles.
We've also got an oil filter.
And we've also got the oil filter to change. So, first things first is we want to get the oil filter off. That is the oil filter there. You can see the nice, and we've got the oil filter removal tool if we need to use that. So we have oil filter removal tool, which fits perfectly and snugly over the end. That will mean the oil filter gets removed.
That gets my hands out of the way.
God, that's tight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very tight. There she goes.
It's really only meant to be a hand tight. Whoever's tightened that up has really tightened it.
You'll probably find they've put it on with a dry seal.
Yeah. There we go, that's your oil filter. This is your new filter. There we go. New filter from Quicksilver. Should be a like-to-like fit.
Very important that you lubricate the O-ring. Yeah. If you don't lubricate the O-ring, tends to permanently stick itself to this machine face. So next time you go to remove it, it's very, very tight.
Which was today.
And make sure it's not cross-threaded, so it goes on really easily all the way home. And then I'm just gonna, my gloves are greasy.
It should really just be done hand tight.
That is very awkward to get into though by hand. We've got so much area. It's a great bit, so I am
just going to nip it just a little bit.
That's it.
There we go. Nothing too tight. Just enough to nip it there. And then the final thing is we're going to fill it up with oil. Right, there we go. I'm just going to put my plug down there.
Okay, now it says on the side here that it takes 1 litre.
1 litre, which should be exactly one of these. 1 litre, there we go. But what I do tend to do is I tend to fill it up 900 mils first off, and then let it settle, and then check the oil level before topping up the final amount. That's quite important to do, because you don't want to overfill these.
I think it's important to add as well that on some engines the oil filter will have to fill, so it's always worth starting it up, letting the oil get round the engine, fill the filter up, and then rechecking your oil level afterwards. Okay, shall I find a funnel?
Love the smell of petrol, love the smell of oil.
Petrol.
Oh, petrol. Aviation fuel is like, oh. Aviation fuel smells so good. I shouldn't really be admitting to having an addiction for smelling petrol. I don't have an addiction for smelling petrol, but just it does smell nice. Especially a 2-stroke engine. I don't know if you've ever had that 2-stroke. Like starting up, I used to have a 2-stroke bike. Starting up a 2-stroke, oh my goodness. It's the best thing in the world. Especially when you have it in your garage, you're sitting overnight, come down and you can smell. Smells beautiful, smells wonderful. Like a perfect aroma.
So we've got about 900 mil in now. If we just check the oil level, something I've seen a lot of people do is this. They turn the stick upside down to look for an oil reading, which is not going to work because the oil is going to run down the stick. So always make sure you keep it up the right way.
And that's directly halfway between the 2 marks. Absolutely perfect. And then screw it in. Right, there she is, all nicely put together and serviced. We've changed the oil, we've changed the spark plugs, we've changed the gear oil, we've changed the impeller a fair bit. And actually it's taken a little while, but not been the smoothest. There's been a couple of complications, but highly recommend that you obviously do look after things as well, and couldn't have done it without Gaz. Gaz is an absolute hero, amazing guy, amazing friend. So I really couldn't have done it without him. So huge thanks to Gaz for helping with us. But I hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful. If you've got any tips or things that yourself, feel free to put it in your comments. But as always, please like, please subscribe, and we'll do some more crazy things, and hopefully loop into Gaz even more videos. So thanks very much for watching.